Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today I'm showcasing head swaps with the DC Multiverse Dawn of Justice Batman. Obviously some Batman figures, like 3 Jokers or Hush, have incompatible neck joints and so I can't swap them, and some other figures are just over the top or don't really match the style. Even so, I am still going to try to hit the highlights. Of course, the easiest way to improve your Batfleck is to swap the neck peg out with a shorter one. Already that's a lot more screen accurate. Kicking things off with one that I'm sure a lot of you are excited for, and here we have Justice League from the Ultimate Movie 6-pack. Fortunately, these two figures are roughly the same size. As expected, this works great. The likeness is much better, and the peg it comes with sits at a naturally perfect height. There are some extraneous details you will have to deal with, but this one definitely has my stamp of approval. Other way around is a bit of a downgrade, but I'd be remiss if I didn't show it to you. Next, and one that could use all the help it can get, and here we have the one from The Flash. As I've said previously, this figure wasn't based on Ben Affleck, but his stunt double. Even though I don't think this head is the strongest likeness, it's definitely an improvement. Full disclosure, I don't have any peg in there right now, it's just kind of sitting on there, and I will say that it's a little bit small for the body, but if you want a more screen accurate movie Flash, this is a great option. For anyone curious about the other way around, here you go. For those wanting to make a generic, non-actor specific Batman, this head is pretty good. For one that got a lot of requests in the comments, and here we have the Mattel version of Batfleck. Although the scales are different, that Mattel head is still pretty big. The challenge is going to be finding a neck peg that's short enough. Currently, I just have this one sitting up on the top of his neck, and even that seems a bit high to me. If you were willing to go the extra mile of shaving that neck down a bit, though, I think this has a lot of potential. The head being slightly smaller does add to the general bulk of the figure, and while not perfect, I do think that this face looks more like Affleck than the McFarlane. In fact, if you put them side by side, you'll notice that the size isn't really that different. It really just comes down to the exposed area of the mouth and jaw. Next up, and I really want to take a look at the Earth 2 Sinestro Corps version. I wanted to see this one in particular because a lot of people use it as the basis for a Batfleck custom. I'm gonna be real with you, I think I like this more than the body that they used for actual Affleck. The texture is finer, so all the body details really stand out better, and in general the proportions are much closer to what we saw on screen. I've seen some great Affleck customs using this body, and I definitely think it's the way to go. Other way around, and for those wanting to use the Affleck body as a highly detailed comic version, and this head looks really good too. In fact, because of the face, if you wanted to, you could use this as a realistic version of Arkham. Either way, just some fun ideas for the customizers. For the comic that inspired Ben Affleck's design, and here we have The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. It's a bit shorter, but I'm more interested in the proportions. I was curious about this because of the bulk, but honestly, this is too bulky even for Batfleck. But if you're curious about the other way around, well, here you go. For those interested in customizing a Nightmare version of Affleck, and here we have Dark Detective. Already I'm excited by that coat and lower half, mixing and matching, and this is very encouraging. With a couple of asterisks. First things first, I used the goggles from the Deluxe Marvel Legends No Way Home Green Goblin. As good as this looks, almost none of the joints match. The arms are shoved in pretty good, but they don't exactly click into place, and the joints unfortunately do not align correctly for you to just swap out the diaper and legs. Additionally, the ball joint on Dark Detective is way too big for Batfleck, so you can't just switch these out. Even so, if you want to try to make this work, there is a lot of potential. For those wanting to take the Nightmare look to the extreme, and here we have the Grim Knight. I could see the lower half of this one being good for a Nightmare custom. To be honest, there's another part of this figure I hadn't thought about that makes it perfect for Nightmare. Specifically the built-in scarf, just like Batfleck had in the movie. Between the texture and the shape of the bat, it's not that far off either. Get rid of the ammo belts and you might just have something. Other way around, and while this isn't one of McFarlane's strongest Batman heads, it's not bad. It's definitely a good short-eared option. The main problem, of course, is that lack of forehead. Still, for a comic-style version, I kinda dig it. For one more movie version that I'm personally curious about, and here we have George Clooney. If this doesn't represent two different extremes of Batman, I don't know what does. The reason I was curious about this one is because the jaw reminds me more of Clooney than Affleck. Zooming in, you could probably see what I mean. I also think that the head and the neck flow into each other much better. Other way around, and if you wondered what it would look like if the Flash movie paid off that end of the movie George Clooney tease, well, here you go. Love him or hate him, I've always felt that Clooney had the best jaw for Batman, and had he gotten to suit up in a future sequel, well, it could have been a lot of fun. And then for some Batman figures in general, and going in order of release, here we have Detective Comics 1000. Although a lot of the joints are dated, I do like the proportions on this one. I was skeptical, but this impressed me more than I expected. To my eye, this just looks like a dude wearing a Batman costume. Like if Batman was just a really good spandex suit or something you'd see at Comic-Con. I've never been a big fan of this figure, but this swap does elevate it. Other way around, and well, not so much. Next, and for one of my favorite Batman figures and designs, here we have Arkham Knight. If Batman was real, I feel like this would be the closest to what he'd look like. This looks even better than I expected. The head itself is a perfect fit, and it really shows what a solid design this is. Conversely, if you wanted to use this as the basis for a long-eared comic-style Batman, it looks great. The face has a lot of personality, and the size of the head is great for this body. For another trench coat wearing Batman, and here we have Dark Knight's Death Metal. Already we can see that the texture of the costumes is very similar between the two. Honestly, this is just plain cool. Forget Justice League 2 and 3, I kinda wanna have a live-action Dark Knight's Death Metal movie now. On the flip side, and for a comic-style version, this works pretty well too. The head's nice and wide, so it blends into the neck pretty well. Again, if you want a more detailed comic version, this is a good way to go. For a basic comic-style option that I'm very curious about, and here we have DC Rebirth. With Batfleck being a little bit smaller, I'm hoping that the Rebirth head will make for a good comic book look. And you know what? This is really good. The head is a little bit small for the body, but that just makes it look bulkier. Other way around, and unfortunately, this head is a little bit big. It does, however, kind of make me wonder what a Rebirth-style Batfleck could look like. Next up, and for a head swap that never disappoints, and here we have Future's End. Similar to Arkham Knight, this also feels like a really realistic option. I could see this as a prototype or an early version of Batfleck's design. Still padded, but not quite as refined. Either way, I like it. Other way around, and this is really cool. That faceless mask with the bright white eyes always adds a chilling effect, and the size and plastic is a perfect fit. For another really great realistic Batman that I'm sure a lot of you are curious about, and here we have Page Punchers. Again, this is another great design for what a realistic Batman could be. As far as I'm concerned, Ben Affleck's costume is the best big screen adaptation of the Batsuit. That said, if a new movie wanted to go a different direction, this would look pretty awesome as well. Interestingly enough, this one also has the metal-tipped knuckles and fins. Other way around, and like I keep saying, if you want a comic version, this would look pretty good. I do feel that a shorter eared cowl is better for this costume design, and this is one of my favorites. If you've got both figures yourself, give it a try. For one that I know a lot of you use as your main display Batman, and here we have Arkham City. I like the costume design of this figure, but I never cared for the proportions of the arms and legs. Just like the Arkham City and Sinestro Corps figures we've already looked at, this is a great long-eared option. It's hard to pick a favorite among those heads, but if you want a long-eared Batman, I think this is an all-around great one, and just based on the merit of the face sculpt, I can see why a lot of you choose this as your main Batman. And you know, from the belt up, the Affleck head looks pretty good on this one. Again, it's just a really nice, realistic adaptation of Batman's suit. Below the belt though, and you really do need to do something about those skinny legs. Lastly, and here we have Jim Gordon as Batman from Endgame. It's interesting because Jim's head looks too big for his body, but it's the perfect size for this one. The neck blends into the head with that perfect Batman silhouette. It might not be Bruce, but it's a great comic Batman. Other way around, and well, you know. For those of you who are curious about Nightfall Batman, I've decided to wait for the black and gray version before doing that head swap. I just figure it'll make more sense when the colors match. Which one was your favorite, and were there any that you would have liked to have seen that I didn't cover? Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.